It's happening again, and this time the warnings came too late. Across the Pacific Ring of Fire, the Earth is cracking, the oceans are rising, and tsunami alerts are flashing red from Japan to Chile.
Earth's fury, in the form of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, resulted in some of the worst disasters this year, especially in a region called the Ring of Fire.
So within the past 24 hours, a violent swarm of megaquakes has rocked the Pacific Basin, from the deep trenches off the Philippine Sea to the rugged coasts of South America. Seismic stations lit up in perfect synchronization, a pattern so widespread that experts are calling it one of the most alarming global seismic events in decades. At first, it was just one quake, magnitude 7.3 near the Mariana Trench. Then, minutes later, another struck off Papua New Guinea. By the time sensors recalibrated, the energy had spread west, triggering a massive 8.1 shock near Tonga, followed by tremors near the coasts of Chile, Japan, and Alaska. That's when the tsunami warnings began. Across the Pacific, NOAA, JMA, and USGS systems simultaneously issued red alerts. Deep ocean pressure buoys registered sudden, violent fluctuations, the unmistakable sign of a multi-origin tsunami. Waves weren't forming from one epicenter, but several. The ocean itself seemed to be convulsing. Social media filled with footage of shorelines receding, the telltale warning before the waves return with unstoppable fury. Fishing boats were pulled toward the horizon. Seabirds fled inland. And in satellite images, the sea's surface appeared to ripple in massive concentric rings, expanding like a heartbeat from the deep. This isn't an isolated event. Scientists now fear the quakes are part of a global chain reaction, the tectonic plates of the Pacific finally reaching their breaking point after years of quiet buildup. Every major subduction zone, Cascadia, Tonga-Kermadec, Japan, Kamchatka, is now on edge. The question no one can answer yet is the one the world is most desperate to know. Is this the beginning of a single catastrophic tsunami or the start of something far worse? Chapter 1. The Quakes that Awakened the Pacific. It started without warning, a flicker on the global seismic map, a tremor so deep that most instruments almost missed it. Then, within seconds, the flicker became a roar. The Pacific Plate, the largest tectonic slab on Earth, had begun to move, not in one place, but along thousands of miles of fault lines at once. The first rupture struck near the Mariana Trench, more than 35,000 feet below the ocean's surface. Sensors captured a violent jolt, followed by something far more disturbing. The seabed itself shifting horizontally by over 10 meters in less than 60 seconds. The energy released was equivalent to several hundred nuclear bombs, and that was just the beginning. From there, the shaking leapt across the Pacific like lightning. Within minutes, new quakes erupted off Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, and Fiji, forming a perfect arc that mirrored the edge of the Ring of Fire. On satellite radar, the crust looked like it was tearing open, a scar racing around the Pacific like a wound splitting wider with every heartbeat. Then came the echoes, massive tremors on the opposite side of the planet. In Chile, sensors picked up the shockwave less than 17 minutes later, strong enough to jolt instruments thousands of kilometers away. The planet was responding as a single, living organism, its bones cracking, its lungs expanding, its pulse quickening. Beneath the ocean, deep-sea hydrophones recorded sounds never heard before, a long, groaning rumble, mixed with sharp metallic cracks as rock fractured under unimaginable stress. The sound carried through the water for hours, wrapping around the globe. By the time the shaking slowed, coastal monitors began flashing with a new alert: mass displacement detected. The seafloor had risen in multiple places, massive slabs of rock thrusting upward, forcing billions of tons of seawater into motion. This wasn't just an earthquake swarm, it was a planetary-scale event, the Pacific Ocean waking from its long slumber. And as the data poured in, one truth became impossible to ignore. The Earth hadn't finished moving, it had just begun to breathe. Chapter 2. The Ocean That Fought Back. It began as a whisper, a deep, low resonance rolling through the depths of the Pacific. Fishermen off Fiji, Japan, and Peru all reported the same eerie phenomenon. The ocean wasn't just moving, it was vibrating. Within hours, the vibration turned violent. The entire Pacific basin was in motion. Deep ocean buoys registered sudden, simultaneous pressure drops thousands of miles apart. Then, in a flash of terrifying precision, the readings reversed. Massive surges of displaced water racing outward in all directions. The sea, it seemed, was striking back. Near the Solomon Islands, underwater cameras recorded a once-in-a-lifetime sight. The sea floor ripping open, releasing jets of steam and silt that turned the turquoise waters jet black. Entire coral shelves crumbled into the abyss. Off the coast of Chile, trawlers caught sight of boiling waves, columns of gas rising through the ocean like underwater storms. When the first tsunami hit land, it was silent. The water drew back so far that beaches became deserts of exposed rock and stranded fish. Then, a dark wall appeared on the horizon, higher than the palm trees, moving faster than a jetliner. It struck Papua New Guinea first, then rebounded eastward, hitting Hawaii with 40-foot waves and pushing across the Pacific toward California, Mexico, and Japan. In Oregon and Washington, the water surged inland for miles, swallowing entire harbors in minutes. Sirens blared across the coastlines. Evacuation routes jammed. The Pacific wasn't acting like an ocean anymore. It was acting like a living thing, an ancient force reclaiming what it once owned. Satellites showed the terrifying scope, a synchronized tsunami encircling the globe, like a heartbeat in water. The pattern was too perfect, too unified to be random. Experts watching the live feed fell silent as realization set in. This wasn't one tsunami, it was a planetary event. And as the walls of water raced toward the continents, one question began echoing across every news station and command center on Earth. If the ocean has learned to move as one, what could possibly stop it? Chapter 3. The Coastlines Collapse. No one was ready for what came next. From California to Japan, from Chile to New Zealand, the world's coastlines were struck almost simultaneously. The waves that began as invisible pulses beneath the sea had transformed into walls of destruction. Each impact was followed by another, as if the ocean itself was breathing, inhaling and exhaling catastrophe. The first blow landed along Japan's eastern coast, near Sendai. It began with a sudden hush. The wind died, birds vanished, and the air thickened with static. Then came the roar. A 60-foot wave slammed into the shore, tearing through seawalls and highways as if they were made of paper. Entire ports vanished. Millions watched helplessly on live television as the coastline dissolved beneath the rising black water. Half a world away, the US West Coast faced the same nightmare. At 8:47 a.m. local time, tsunami sirens in San Francisco, Seattle, and Los Angeles screamed to life. But there was no time to flee. Within minutes, 30-foot waves engulfed the Pacific Highway, crashing into neighborhoods and dragging debris miles inland. Ships tore free from their moorings, flipping like toys. Bridges bent, piers vanished, and whole towns disappeared beneath a grey, churning tide. And it wasn't over. Farther south in Chile, seismometers registered a strange phenomenon. Secondary quakes triggered by the tsunami itself. The ground beneath the waves was shifting again, creating a feedback loop of chaos. As the sea poured inland, the land beneath it bent and cracked, collapsing like a sinking chest. New fissures opened along the coast, some glowing faintly red from frictional heat. In Hawaii, satellites recorded a sight so surreal it defied belief. Two waves moving in opposite directions collided near Oahu, forming a vertical tower of water nearly 100 feet tall. before exploding outward in a spiral of spray and lightning. It was as if the ocean had become electrically charged, alive with its own energy. Every coastline in the Pacific was breaking apart, not from erosion, not from tides, but from the planet itself shifting. Highways became rivers, rivers became oceans, and mountains began to crumble as aftershocks rippled inland. The planet's crust wasn't just shaking anymore, it was rearranging. And as global communication systems failed and power grids flickered out, one message continued to appear on emergency broadcasts, repeating in every language, over every frequency, across every screen. This is not over. Chapter 4. The day the sky turned red. It wasn't just the ground that erupted, it was the sky. Within hours of the Pacific's massive rupture, volcanoes that had slept for centuries roared back to life. From Alaska's Aleutian chain to the volcanic ridges of Indonesia, an unbroken ring of fire lit the horizon. Satellite images showed plumes so vast they merged into one swirling mass that blanketed the Pacific like a black storm. At the heart of the chaos, Mount Redoubt in Alaska exploded with a blast that rivaled the force of several nuclear bombs. Ash rose 15 miles high, spreading eastward over Canada and the northern United States. In Kamchatka, Russia's volcanoes followed suit, sending rivers of molten rock surging toward the frozen coast. Within hours, Japan's Mount Sakurajima, the Philippines' Taal, and Papua New Guinea's Ulawan joined the chain reaction, each eruption feeding the growing storm. The sky over the Pacific turned crimson, not from sunset, but from ash and fire refracting the sun's dying light. Airplanes were grounded across half the planet. Temperatures began to drop as sunlight dimmed. A thin, eerie haze settled over cities thousands of miles away. From Los Angeles to Beijing, people stood outside, staring upward, unaware they were witnessing the first signs of what some scientists called a volcanic winter. Then came the lightning. Ash clouds collided in the stratosphere, generating electrical storms of staggering intensity. Bolts of purple and white lightning tore through the darkness, illuminating clouds of molten debris. Cameras captured a surreal image, a halo of lightning encircling the Pacific Ocean, the Earth's own ring of fire, glowing and alive. But beneath the beauty lurked horror. The weight of volcanic ash collapsed roofs, poisoned rivers, and smothered crops. Millions lost power as transformers overloaded, the atmosphere filled with fine glass-like dust that reflected sunlight and cooled the planet's surface by several degrees. In a single night, daylight disappeared from entire regions. Noon looked like dusk. The air smelled of sulfur and ash. Scientists at the USGS described it simply: the Earth is venting pressure. But that didn't calm anyone, because if this was just the vent, the release, then what was still trapped below? As the ash clouds thickened and global air currents shifted, one haunting truth became clear. The sky wasn't just red because of what the Earth had lost, it was red because of what it was becoming. Chapter 5. The faults that shouldn't have moved. It wasn't supposed to happen. The world's tectonic models had long predicted the Pacific would bear the brunt of the stress, but in the days following the megaquake, faults far from the Ring of Fire began to awaken. From the deserts of Nevada to the icy plains of Antarctica, dormant cracks in the Earth's crust were suddenly alive. Sensors in regions thought geologically stable, the Rocky Mountains, the Appalachians, even parts of Europe's Iberian Peninsula, began to pulse with faint, rhythmic tremors. It was as if the entire planet had flinched at once. In Oregon, GPS stations recorded something unprecedented, the ground shifting eastward by nearly 3 centimeters overnight. Not a landslide, but a continental nudge. Farther north in British Columbia, deep borehole monitors detected microseisms, tiny quakes, every 11 minutes, pulsing in sync with residual waves from the Pacific. Scientists called it seismic echoing, but the name did little to capture its terrifying implications. In Yellowstone, a place already feared for its sleeping supervolcano, hydrothermal geysers began erupting out of rhythm. Pools changed color as minerals shifted from deep within. It was subtle, but ominous, like the planet was whispering through the steam. Then came the shock no one saw coming. The New Madrid fault zone, deep beneath America's Midwest, jolted to life. Ground motion sensors across Missouri, Tennessee, and Arkansas spiked without warning. Bridges trembled, roads cracked, river levels fluctuated for no reason. The last time this fault erupted, in 1811, it made the Mississippi flow backward. And now, more than 2 centuries later, the ground beneath the American heartland was stirring again. Satellite interferometry revealed rippling deformations spreading across the continental interior, as though the entire crust was flexing in slow motion. The quake in the Pacific hadn't ended. It had reverberated across the planet's bones, awakening everything it touched. Even regions considered tectonically dead began producing low-frequency signals. Africa's Sahara, the Alps, even the flatlands of Australia. It wasn't chaos, it was symmetry. The energy had found equilibrium, rippling outward until the whole world moved as one. For the first time in modern history, the Earth itself was oscillating, breathing, flexing, and shifting under a rhythm no human could stop. The maps drawn by geologists for over a century no longer made sense. The fault lines weren't boundaries anymore, they were arteries. And as this new planetary heartbeat spread, one terrifying question echoed through every research center on Earth. If every fault on the planet can move at once, where does the shaking end? Chapter 6. The cities that fell silent. At first, it was the lights. One by one, they blinked out. Not just in towns or neighborhoods, but entire cities. From Tokyo to San Francisco, from Jakarta to Lima, night fell earlier than expected. Not because of the sunset, but because the power grids were dying. The shaking had finally stopped, but what it left behind was worse. Substations flooded, transformers exploded, communications failed. The planet's electrical arteries had been severed. For the first time in modern memory, half the Pacific Rim went dark. In Los Angeles, skyscrapers that had survived the quake now swayed under their own weights. Cracks spread up the sides of glass towers like spiderwebs. The ports, once a lifeline for trade, were now graveyards of twisted metal and drowned cargo ships. The ocean had taken back the shoreline, leaving behind a ghost city, eerily quiet except for the hiss of receding water. Across the ocean, Tokyo looked no better. Entire districts were submerged. Fires raged where electrical lines met seawater, casting orange reflections across the flooded streets. The once bustling Shibuya crossing, a symbol of modern life, lay buried beneath mud and shattered glass. In Manila, survivors huddled on rooftops as black rain began to fall. Rain laced with volcanic ash, turning rivers into grey sludge. Across Chile, highways disappeared beneath landslides. The Andes glowed faintly red at night as magma surged in ancient vents. Satellites orbiting the planet captured a haunting image. Whole continents dimmed. The luminous outline of civilization, once bright from space, had faded into shadow. The Earth looked like it had closed its eyes, and yet something was still stirring beneath that silence. Emergency broadcasts cut off mid-sentence. Ships at sea reported unidentified vibrations, deep and rhythmic, echoing through the hulls. The same pulse detected in the Pacific, hours before the chain of disasters began. The sound wasn't random. It came in intervals, precise, timed, almost like a heartbeat. But this time, it wasn't centered beneath the ring of fire. It was moving east, through the Atlantic. Sensors in Iceland, Portugal, and along the mid-Atlantic ridge all registered the same signal, a subsonic pulse, powerful enough to travel through the core and back. Scientists stared at their instruments, realizing the unthinkable. The stress that shattered the Pacific had crossed to the other side of the world. The planet wasn't stabilizing, it was synchronizing. And as millions sat in darkness, cut off from the world, one truth became undeniable. This wasn't the end of a disaster, it was the beginning of a new Earth. Chapter 7. The day Earth changes shape. It began as a whisper through the mantle. Then, all at once, the planet moved. At 2:47 UTC, satellites orbiting Earth recorded something scientists had once thought impossible. The continents shifted, not by inches, not by millimeters, but by measurable, visible motion. Coastlines stretched, islands vanished, mountain ranges rose by meters in real time. The pulse that had circled the planet for weeks had reached its crescendo, and the Earth finally exhaled. Deep beneath the Pacific, the seafloor bulged upward, forming a ridge stretching for hundreds of miles. In the Atlantic, a vast crack opened near the mid-Atlantic ridge, releasing torrents of superheated water and molten material. In a single day, new crust was born. Across the world, compasses spun wildly. GPS networks collapsed. The magnetic field reversed polarity for nearly 6 full minutes before stabilizing, the longest magnetic fluctuation ever recorded. For those living through it, the skies shimmered with ghostly auroras even in the tropics. Radios went silent. The ionosphere screamed with static. From space, the Earth looked different. The planet's shape had subtly changed. The Pacific basin narrowed, and the western edges of the Americas lifted slightly, as if drawn upward by invisible hands. Ocean levels fluctuated, shifting vast amounts of water toward the Indian Ocean and Arctic basins. And then, silence. Seismographs that had been screaming for weeks suddenly went flat. The heartbeats stopped. The planet grew still, eerily still. Scientists braced for aftershocks, for another wave, another tremor, but none came. It was as though the Earth had found a new equilibrium. Cities began to emerge from the darkness, their people staring at unfamiliar horizons. Coastlines were redrawn. New islands smoldered in the Pacific, still glowing from volcanic birth. Humanity stood in awe, silent before a planet that had just rewritten its own design. This was not an extinction, it was a reset. The Earth had moved, breathed, burned, and then healed. And as scientists gathered the first global data, one message began to trend across every surviving broadcast. The planet wasn't ending, it was beginning again. If this story made you question how fragile our world really is, don't look away. Subscribe, share, and stay with us as we uncover what happens next beneath our feet, because the Earth isn't finished changing, and this might only be the first pulse of its new era.